Welcome to the Growth Guys Podcast, presented by KinderReeseCoaching.com. This is the #1 podcast for real estate agents who are serious about growing their business. Get the strategies and tactics to grow your business fast while building the lifestyle you dream of. Now, sit back, buckle up, and get ready, because we're about to get real. The Growth Guys Podcast starts right now.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to today's Growth Guys podcast. I got John Kitchens again with me today to join everybody. What's going on, Kitchens?
What is happening, man? How's Mr. Jeff Kiani doing today?
Another fantastic day. I'm getting excited for this 4th of July weekend. We're second day into July, second day into the second quarter of the year, right? Third quarter.
Second half.
Geez, second
coming
half
out of halftime.
So today, man, I'm excited. We're gonna talk about roles today and the different positions within your business that need to be filled. Sometimes it's by you. In the beginning, you wear all the hats, right? And the goal is hopefully at some point to figure out which one of those hats represents the best use of your time. Not that the other hats don't need to be worn by somebody, but that one thing that's representing the best use of your time is being sacrificed when you're having to wear other hats. And so we're going to talk a little bit about today, right, Kitchens, like what those hats are, what the roles are, the highest leverage levers, the revenue generating buttons that you can hit in your business, and how to delegate some of those duties and really identify what the responsibilities are for those roles, so that when you get to the point where you're hiring, which we touched on a little bit in our last episode and we'll talk about more in future episodes, but so that when you get to the point when you're hiring the person, you know how to hire the right person because you're really clear on what they'd be doing. So I'll let you kick things off today, Kitchens.
Yeah, buddy. Yeah, absolutely. And you know, I think it all boils down to, and we've talked about it all boils down to, what's the goal? And, you know, what is it that we're really ultimately wanting to accomplish? And in this business, there is nothing that will make you more money than you closing transactions yourself, right? So if you think about it, you have a team member, you have a buyer's agent or whatever, you could be given, 40, 50, 60, 70% of every dollar away. Whereas if you're doing the deal, you're at 100%, you get to keep every dollar. Obviously, fees and whatever splits or whatever you may be on with whatever brokerage, or if you're independent, then you're keeping those and you have whatever costs associated with it. But not to get too granular with it, but really in the simplest of forms, you get to keep those dollars. So from a model perspective, the progression that we've seen is that, you come in, you're doing it all. And always our first step is to create some leverage and get you to a point to where we can get you out of working with buyers, because buyers, are time consuming. Now, does that mean that we want to completely say no to buyers? I had this conversation with some studs of ours that we've been working with for several years. And, they pick and choose the buyers, right? So like their average price point's like around 200,000. And I looked at their report today and I was like, oh, you can definitely want to work with those. There were like 440,000 buyers. I was like, and I bet those, you didn't have to multiple offer situations. They're like, nope. I'm like, yeah, cherry pick. So you get to that point, right, to where it does make sense to work with motivated buyers in a certain higher price point. But, at the end of the day, we're really trying to create the most leverage, and we just have to understand what gives us the best return on our time, right? Our energy. And that was another thing that we talked about too, is that, for them out hustling, working with buyers, also working with a bunch of listings and listing clients, man, they go home exhausted after they work with buyers all day. And that just really drains them from working on the big rocks, the big, priorities, the big things that will push the business forward. So just really uncovering, at the end of the day, what is the goal? What is it that you're wanting to accomplish? And then the next step is just kind of what you were leading into. Man, what does the team have to look like to support to hit the goal? That's key, right? So you have to get clear on the sequence. And one is, what's the goal? What are we trying to accomplish? And giving right now, the goal right now, what does the team need to look like to help hit that goal? And, you've got to answer that question first, and then you can move into, all right, what's the team got to look like?
Mm-hmm. So what are some of the key roles that you think at a minimum level? I mean, once you get out of the solopreneur stage where you are literally doing everything yourself, once you progress out of that stage, what's the first, you think, key addition that most agents need to make?
Yeah. I think, kind of to answer that question, I think you want to understand a couple things, right? What are the main functions and hats in any business? And shoot, Jeff, you know this. I mean, you're wearing a bunch of hats right now, right? You're sitting in a bunch of functions. But if you go through the exercise and you sit back and you're like, okay, well, we know that there's always a head of company. And, it can be king of the hill, queen of the hill. It doesn't matter. There's always just a head of company. And I'll come back to the head of company's primary role, but you have sales function, right? There's a function of sales in anything and everything that you do. There's also a marketing function. And, a couple things there to understand is that, marketing's job is to make sure sales has what it needs to hit the sales objective, the sales goal. And I like to also think sales helps us solve what we need to solve now, and marketing is long term, right? Marketing is the long term play that's helping us build the brand over a course of time. We've got a hustler of a client out in Reno that is he's a great dude, and he's been bang hammer, right? Sales for so long. And, he's just really becoming a marketing student, and you're starting to already see the progression, right? And just the change in what's happening as he's building out from a marketing perspective. So you've got marketing as a main function. You've got all of your operations as a main function. And then you've got your finance as a main function. Those are your five main buckets. It doesn't matter, we were kind of joking, leading into 4th of July, weekend, and it doesn't matter if you're running a hot dog business or if you're selling real estate, or we're setting up a lemonade stand. You have all of those functions, right? Think about it. Somebody's in charge. Somebody's making sure knowing how to close to make sales. We've got marketing up to be able to get people to come and sell to. We've got operations, which are the systems and processes to allow us to transact this engagement. And then we got somebody that's going to be counting the money, right? So it doesn't matter. Whatever you do, you cover all of those functions. And in the beginning, you're wearing all of them. And what happens is that you tend to gravitate to what your strengths are. And really what you feel, maybe what you feel the most comfortable, Jeff, I think. And I think this is a good transition. We were talking about DISC before we went live, and we're talking about kind of understanding the profile and makeup of individuals. I think this might be a good kind of segue transition into kind of touching on that for a minute.
Yeah, I mean, in a nutshell, we could spend hours talking about the different personality profiles that are out there. But I think it's key to at least use one and build it into the process when you onboard people and when you're looking to identify what the best role is for them. In some cases, you have people that are just in the wrong position. They're better suited to do something else. And so understanding what people's strengths are is important. And we always use the Tony Robbins DISC personality assessment, which is free online. You can take it. And it has a pretty lengthy, detailed report that outlines what the strengths are of that individual, whether they're more technical, whether they're more apt to be really good at customer service, whether they're aggressive in the sense that they'd be good at actually being a salesperson who's asking for the order. And then you can match those people up with the right activity. Because having somebody who's more who's more routine oriented, who wants a lot of predictability, who wants to, just check off tasks throughout the day, maybe something that's more of an admin position, that's the wrong person to be asking to sit down and call expireds every day, probably. Right. just as though the person that I want sending my emails and doing non-customer facing work, the person who wants to be in front of the customer isn't going to be in the best position to do that work. And I think what's hard in the beginning, sales drives everything in the beginning. Sales drives everything. And there's plenty of people that will probably argue the importance of it. But at the end of the day, if there ain't no sales, there ain't no money for marketing, there ain't no, money for anything. And so what happens, I think, at the beginning is you're just trying to sell and you're doing everything else. And sales is such a big, important part that and this is a question I'm just asking because I know it comes up all the time with agents, is when am I at the point where I should get an administrative assistant? Because, do you know what I mean? You probably get that question over the 10,000 coaching calls that you've had it thousands of times, I'm sure.
100%. And my answer is always, as soon as you have the money to make the hire, make the hire. And it's
then what do I do? Then what do I spend my time on when I get my administrative assistant?
Great point. So here's what you have to realize. It's an investment. It's not an expense. And that's where a lot of people get hung up in the psychology of it, is that they're like, man, I can't afford this expense. And it's like, well, one, if you don't reallocate the time that you get back to dollar producing activities, then it is an investment into maybe getting you a little bit more quality of life. But if you reinvest that time, and let's say you were spending, 50% of your working time, say you were working 50 hours a week, and 25 of those hours was on activities that needed to get off of your plate, like paperwork and just closing stuff and contract to close, listing stuff, and just I's dotted, T's crossed. But what would happen if you reinvested those 25 hours back into high dollar producing activities, such as, lead generation activities, marketing activities, doing the activities to create a conversation, to having conversations, to getting face-to-face, to negotiating deals? What would happen if you reallocated that time, or at least 70% of that time, to those activities? What do you think that would do to your bank account?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it would make a dramatic increase. So what are the obstacles? What are some of the struggles that make it difficult for people to say yes? Because there's plenty of people that can afford it, but still, want to do everything on their own.
Yeah. It's it happens all the time. It's the limiting belief of thinking that you can do it better and faster than anybody else. And that may be true to an extent, but however, it's not a high dollar producing activity. It's still $10, $15, $20 an hour work. And do the math. If you're spending 50% of your working time doing $15 an hour work, what is the end result going to equate to? And that's where most people get hung up, is that they have this false belief that I can just do it faster. I don't need to have somebody do it. It's like, okay, maybe, but is that what you want to do? Right. And so I think that's where that taps into the DISC a little bit. And I don't want to get into the profiles. That can be a whole nother conversation. But what I want people to understand about the DISC is that no matter what your DISC profile is, you can do anything. Flat out, you can do anything. The thing that you have to understand is that, like you were talking about, you're looking for an ID type of personality, right? Somebody that's not afraid to get on the phone, somebody that's not afraid to ask for the order. And it could be a balance. It could be a DI, ID, whatever, kind of in that equation. But a CS personality can come in and crush it in sales. They can. I've seen it. I've seen it many, many of times. But what happens is that it's not sustainable. That CS personality that's doing ID type activities and work, that person goes home exhausted at the end of the day. Like energy depleted, gone, like energy battery drain. My battery is dead. And so it's not sustainable. So one of the key characteristics that you want to look, and why we don't base everything off the disc, we just kind of gauge it as, okay, man, this dude has proven track record. He's skilled. He's hungry. What is it? Hungry, humble, and smart.
Yeah.
And he is, he or she is there, but their disc profile is not lining up to a sales function. Just know if you do pull the trigger that person is probably going to be short term. They just, it's not going to last. It may last 2 years. It may last 3 years, but it's not going to last beyond that, because they're not going to push through when it gets tough. Their energy. And so you can coach to that, Jeff. You can coach to it. You can coach recovery. You can coach things to where they're going to be a little off. Like you can coach them through when to ask for the order. You can coach them through the things that they're just not naturally going to grasp onto. And so I just definitely want, everybody to get that. That was a big, huge aha for us when we were taught that lesson. And it's so true. It is so true. And we talk about time management, and I know we'll dive into that in later episodes, but more so it's about energy management. And where your energy is and where your energy is depleted, how to be the most productive. So that's a key indicator in helping you, maximize your productivity.
So you mentioned a few times, I want to unpack the dollar producing activities, so just like literally let's break down what a list of those dollar producing activities are for the average agent.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, there's nothing that pays you more in this business than working with motivated sellers. Second is motivated buyers. I would say.
So just to unpack that for a minute. So motivated sellers. So what's that look like on a day-to-day basis? What am I doing to spend, let's say that I'm going to dedicate 10 hours today and I want to spend as much time as I can of that 10 hours engaging with motivated sellers. But I don't know where the hell to start, John. These motivated sellers, what do I do?
Yeah, man. I think the mindset you have to adopt is be thinking about who's the closest to make the cash register ring. And you look at, that's why we always talk about going after expireds for sell by owners, cancels, withdrawals, because they are the closest to making the cash register ring, and they are the highest probability of working with a real estate agent. And so we really want to we want to go after those, man. We've got to be making phone calls. We've got to be engaging. We've got to be doing the things we can to get their attention, to have a conversation. And that's kind of the hierarchy where you have to start. You have to start with, man. And here's the brutal truth, Jeff, and you know this. You've worked commission-based business a majority of your life. Compensation drives behavior. And if you know that you're on a commission basis, your time and energy and focus is going after what you have to go hunt and kill. And so you've got to be thinking, who is my next deal? Who's going to make the cash register ring the fastest? And that's where you want to, really first and foremost, put that time, energy, and effort. So and you can speak to this better than anybody. I mean, that comes down to your prospecting, your lead gen, your lead conversation activities. And I mean, you can speak to this better, like I said, better than anybody.
Yeah. So I just wanted to break it down kind of from start to finish, and you nailed it. It's reaching out to the people that you, for some reason or another, have some evidence that they are more likely to be susceptible to your offer. And if we're talking about motivated sellers, I don't know anybody who has any clearer indication that there's some level of motivation there than somebody who had just put their home on the market and failed to sell it. Doesn't mean that they all are. Some of them have made, they changed their mind. They're going to wait, whatever the case is. But outside of maybe somebody in my sphere, my friends or family, outside of somebody coming to me if I can find some killer lead funnel where I can, get somebody who's saying I'm ready to sell right now, outside of all that, expireds, for sale by owners, and canceled are it. And so what I think is hard in so many agents that we talk to is in the beginning, you're like, dude, you got to spend time calling expireds, cancels, or for sale by owners. And they might equate that to be like 1 hour a day or something. Listen, like if you don't have anything else to do, if I don't need to be working on creating some fancy flyer, or in my opinion, in Kitchens, you can speak to it on here, but this is where some people would much rather do marketing. That's fun, easy, right? Let me go design this, let me do this. But that's not going to move the needle right now. And when we're looking for deals right now, if I don't have anything, look, my day would be, and this is going back to the guy you were talking about in Reno, at 7:45, I'm on the phone talking to anybody and everybody that I possibly can about helping them purchase or helping them sell their home. Sometime in between that and when I go home, I might have an opportunity to actually go meet some people face to face. I'm going to do that. And when I'm done with that, if there's nothing else to do, I'm going to get back on the phone and I'm going to move the needle so I can contact some more people. And at some point, my marketing and everything will allow me to take those conversations off of the phone. I'll have more people to meet with. My marketing will open the doors for me to go different places and meet more people face to face with events and stuff like that. It will make the conversations that I have on the phone smoother because there'll already be some brand authority and awareness there. But it is still about, in the beginning, having as many conversations as you can in that 10 hours, if that's what we're talking about in a day, about helping somebody buy or sell their homes, coming up with a fancy email or spending some time designing some fancy flyer or something. That is something that I would pay somebody $100 for so I can stay on the phone for another 3 hours. I'm going to make $3,000 in the next 3 hours by calling this next set of leads because I'm going to get 2 appointments and one of them is going to flake and one of them I'm going to get. And so that's, at the end of the day, even though it's 90 days down the road, maybe, it's $3,000 that I was going to, give up doing $10, $15 an hour work. And so I think that that's what people don't want to do is they don't want to stay on the phone. But when we talk about what the highest, getting back to the dollar producing activities, calling expireds, that's it. If you want to go knock on the expired's door, fine, go do it. At least it's an activity that is putting you potentially in front of a motivated seller, right? Again, coming up with a fancy Facebook post, spending 2 hours to find an image and a clever line, and I'm going to post this thing on my Facebook page. So you got to really think.
I remember we were sitting down. This was early on back in early 05, 04. Man, we were sitting there and we were sitting down. It's like, man, all right, we're going to nail this listing presentation. PowerPoint. We're going to lay this bad boy out. We had 12-pack of beer, had Reedy, had Jay, had myself, all lined out, getting ready to go. And I said, man, this is the dumbest thing ever. I said, I bet we can pay somebody $200 to do this for us. And they kind of both looked at, and I said, how much is your time worth? How much is your time worth? I know what my time's worth. I guarantee you we can get more out of our time together than sitting here trying to do this. And sure enough, we found somebody to do 2 presentations for us for $250. So, it's just, you have to get that out of your head thinking that you've got to do it all yourself. And you've got to, it's about leverage. And that's why it's understanding what's the goal, what's the team need to look like to support to hit the goal, knowing that there's only a handful of functions in any industry, anything that you do. And you have to understand where the highest and best use of your time. And as fast as you can, you're head of company. So I told you I was going to tell you your number one responsibility is to fill the boxes. Get your name out of the boxes and fill the boxes with somebody else. That's your number one job. And so when you realize that and you go through that exercise and you realize that your name is in every box, every function, then you start looking at what is high dollar producing activities. I'm going to keep this. I'm going to get rid of this. And you start putting other people in those boxes because that's your job. That's your job. And that's how you create leverage. That's how you grow. That's how you move out of solopreneur to CEO. And it's the same process. It's the same process. And once you understand that, man, you're able to move really, really fast.
And it all gets you in front of more people. I think for most people, really at the end of the day, the role that generates the most revenue, the highest producing activity, the most of us can participate in is being face to face with the prospect talking about a deal. And
I think there's a podcast called Face to Face for a reason.
Oh, I
right?
think there is. Yeah, right. That is, it's a pretty good one. It's a pretty good one. I might be a little biased. But yeah, that is. And so when you like, well, you're talking about this highest producing activity, but then at the same time, you're going to tell me to go get an ISA. Absolutely. Because it's going to service you the ability to, once there's database and momentum, there's opportunities that you are missing being face-to-face because you are stuck behind a desk making those calls. And think about all the time that's spent if you make calls where you don't talk to anybody and you get a bunch of bad numbers and you get people that aren't interested and everything, and all those minutes add up. And then at that point, it's taking away from your highest producing activity, which is being in front of people. And so the ISA then takes that responsibility over from making the calls, but still pushes the needle towards your number one activity, which is to get you face-to-face in front of more people. The marketing efforts drive more awareness so that you can get more face-to-face with more people. So in the beginning, there's all these people that you could potentially meet face-to-face, but you're trying to do everything, so you're only able to service a small part of the crowd. Eventually, when you can just concentrate on servicing the crowd, you're in front of more people. You're face to face. You look at these people on TV that have 2 or 3 TV shows under different names. All they got to do is face to face time. They got everything else. All they got to do is show up and be face to face.
It's hands and mouth, right? Right. It's the whole dentist, right? So think about when you go visit your dentist. Think about it, right? When you go visit your dentist, is your dentist the one greeting you when you walk in? Is the dentist the one grabbing you, walking you back, getting you into the chair? Is the dentist the one that is prepping you, doing everything that they need to do? No. When does the dentist come in? When he's got to put his hands in his mouth and see you for 20 seconds, give him his advice, look over your charts, and then say this, that, or the other. And then he's out. He's on to the next one, right? And so, man, it's that same concept that I get it. In the beginning, you're doing all those things. But as fast as you can start getting the receptionist piece off your plate, the person that's walking back prepping off of your plate, man, your income, your revenue, your everything starts to grow. And that's what you have to understand, that whole concept and what you're working towards.
And just remember, you got to make sure that your service, your feeding, it all should end up with you getting in front of more people. If you're doing all that and somehow you're not getting in more people, or if you're not in production, then your goal is for it to be getting the people who are in production in front of more people face to face. If the efforts are not ultimately getting whoever it is, going back to what you said, Kitchen's the goal. But the goal is either to get you or to get your selected group of agents in front of more people face to face.
100%.
And so we got to focus that we're not missing out on that, because that is the best time spent. And let's just say, here's what I was thinking. I almost lost track, but so just imagine you're talking about just what would your day look like, or what would your income look like if you could spend time on that activity. So let's say the listing appointment takes about an hour. And let's say that, you got realistically, let's say that I had, 4 or 5 hours I could dedicate to those during a day outside of other stuff. So just imagine if you could go on 4 listing appointments a day, that's 4 hours of time. Now, why can't you do that? Well, maybe I don't have the leads to do it, or my calendar's too busy with other things. And so I don't even have the time to go on those 4 listing appointments. So I push it, and then somebody else gets in front of me and I don't get it, or something happens, right? Time kills deals. But just imagine if I let that other stuff sit there, 4 hours, each one of those, let's say that I close 50%. So anywhere in America, let's say on average, you're going to make $2,000 to $3,000 net commission. There's a fair assumption that I'm going to get 2 of those 4 listing appointments. So let's just call it $4,000 to be conservative. Over how much time? 4 hours. So that's $1,000 an hour that I got paid to go on those listing appointments. But some people are going, nah, I want to go work on planning for this open house, or I want to go work on sending some emails, or I just want to, call it a day, or I only want to take appointments after 6 p.m. or man, give me 8 hours a day in front of people face to face and watch what happens. And now if I'm trying to do, I would say just get me in front of the 8 people a day. Everything else is going to fall apart, because if you're trying to do everything, that's what will happen. And so either I'm going to go say, screw it, I'm going to go in front of the 8 people, but then follow-up's going to fall apart. Deals are going to fall out of closing because I'm trying to manage too many things. I'm trying to go after what I think is right, but everything else is sacrificing. Or if I say, no, I can't do the 8 listings appointments a day because I got all this other stuff to do, so I'm going to have to cut myself back to 4. Well, that means I'm losing business there. So either trying to service it all, doing it on the right thing, with the right thing in mind, I'm losing out. And if I do it the other way, I'm losing out. So you just can't do it all. Just like Kitchen said, man, you got to get, as soon as you can, people in those other boxes. And I don't know anybody who's in sales, and we're all in sales. I don't know anybody who's in sales who disagrees with this statement. Just put me in front of somebody who is willing to listen. And that's all I want to do all day long. Let's face it, I don't want to prospect. I just know it's part of the game. But if there's a way for me to just, here, it's 1 o'clock, go stand in front of that person and try to close them. It's 1:30, go stand in front of that person, try to close them. It's 2 o'clock, go stand in front of that person. Oh, man, I could get into that all day long. By 3 or 4 o'clock, I'm in a rhythm. I mean, I'm crushing it. By 3 or 4 o'clock, you're in the zone,
Face to face. Yep. I think, let's wrap this with just kind of leave everybody with this kind of thought. You're either playing offense or you're playing defense. And I really think if you're trying to dot the I's and cross the T's and be the guy doing everything, you're playing defense. You're not playing offense. And eventually what happens is that it's the whole survival game, right? You end up, if you just focus on survival, you end up running out of supplies. And so you got to be clear on the destination. You've got to play offense to get where you want to be. And so that's really what it boils down to, in understanding that you need people if you really want to accomplish big things in your life.
I love it. What a great message going into a holiday weekend, Kitchens. Just remember, guys, if you guys want to get clear and jump on what we call a growth call and have us help you walk through some of these aspects of your business and get clear on what the right things are to do in the right order, that's what we do on a day-to-day basis. Kitchens has participated in over 10,000 coaching calls, so there's not anybody better to probably give you advice and be that mentor and that coach to point you in the right direction. So go to kinderreese.com and start your journey there. And we're going to sign off for today, but the next episode of the Growth Guys podcast will be coming out soon. So be sure and look for it wherever you're listening to this.
I love it. Thanks, Jeff. See you guys.
All right.
To find out how to build a 7-figure real estate business in 3 years or less, go to kinderreesecoaching.com. You've been listening to the Growth Guys podcast. If you want us to help you grow your real estate business, go to kinderreesecoaching.com. And don't forget to subscribe to the Growth Guys podcast on iTunes, SoundCloud, Stitcher, or wherever you get your podcast fix to get new, fresh weekly episodes. Catch you next time on the Growth Guys podcast.